This is a quick tutorial on a theory for finding neighbors of points in a polygon. And when I'm talking about neighbors, this is for using a pathfinding algorithm. So either you're using Dijkstra's or you're using A star. Um, I do recommend learning both Dijkstra and A star. A star in a lot of cases is faster than Dijkstra's. And you can start with um, all the tutorials that I had learned these things from. I'll put them down in the comments. But you've got the guide to Dijkstra's, um, and A star is the part 2 of it, and
Am I?
this is using polygons to figure out how to use the algorithms. And then there is this set of tutorials, which is using a grid-based. You're going to see a lot of people thinking of programming A star on grids and not Dijkstra's. So if you're using a polygon, normally they'll talk and say, oh, use Dijkstra's, but A star is the same thing as Dijkstra's. It's just missing one component of the distance to the target. When working on a 2D background, something like this, these are just some backgrounds I took from another artist to practice using pixel art, and I mashed them together, I filled them in, I painted some new areas, and I'll leave a link to his work in the description as well. And for something like this, the first time I did it using A star, I did build a grid, and it was somewhere in the range of 100,000 nodes to fill this entire area and have a good enough resolution to be able to get around finer details. That is a lot to handle, and if I just did this as a polygonal path, then there'll be less nodes to be able to calculate than having to calculate all of those 100,000 or however many it was nodes. So once you have your polygon, if you're going to move to another node, so I've got all my nodes here, 1 to 8. If I'm going to move to another node, we need to know if you can actually see that node and move to that node. In the grid-based formula, it's very easy because for any one grid piece that I have, the neighbors are above, diagonal, and to the sides and below. So it's really easy to calculate who the neighbors are using that grid system. If I'm using a polygonal system, I'm going to need a better way to do this. So the first thing I do is I want to calculate what all of these edges are. So I actually go through point by point and break off, let's do some purple. I'm going to break off each of the edges and save as an edge that is defined by 2 points. So I'm going to call this edge 8, edge 0, edge 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. So breaking these edges off is going to be nice and clean, and that can calculate extremely fast. The next thing we want to do is I am going to try to draw a line between 2 points. So I'm going to go from 0 to, let's say, 6. Now the problem is, to get to 6, I have to cross both edge 7. Well, I have to cross edge 7. The calculations also include the edges you're on, so both edge 8, edge 7, and edge 6 are all being crossed in order to get there. If I wanted to go from edge 0 to edge 4, I have a straight line, but once again, this is also not usable because the start point is on edge 8 and edge 0, and it reaches edge 4 and edge 3. Those would be considered as being hit. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use some math, which will take each of the points and move them inwards, giving an interior border. And in your programming, you set how far the distance is on that border. You want to keep it very small. And it's going to be very specific math because if I just took that shape and scaled it, it's going to have to find probably the center point, which I'm just going to guess it. Let's say that's the center point. And if I move a point inwards towards the center point, like let's take point 2. If I move point 2 inwards from here to the center, it's not going perfectly to where it should go, or from here to the center. That's a better one. Because from here, you want to be able to have it follow its normal, and it should go in that direction, not this direction. So there is some math behind that, and I will be doing a longer tutorial, which will actually be the programming side of this. But for now, this is just the theory behind it. So once we've created this new shape, I'm going to then number this shape here. Actually, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so these are the points that we're going to be testing now. Now, if I go and I draw a line from the cyan point 0, so the inner border points, to 6, it no longer crosses E0 and E8, but it does cross E7 and E6. Anytime I draw a line and it crosses one of these segments, one of these edges, it's going to see it as not valid. If I draw it from 0 to 3, it doesn't cross any edges. If I go from 1 to 3, then we can see it's going to cross edge 1 and edge 2. That won't be valid. So to do all of your interior lines, you're going to need 2 pieces of math in order to do the programming. The first one is the border math. The second one is going to be crossing edges, or let's call them segments. So anytime you have one segment defined by 2 points, and you have another segment, there is math that can be able to track these points by their x and y coordinates. So it's going to break it down into x, y, x, y, x, y, x, y. So once you've broken down into those coordinates, there is some math that you can use to be able to get those to overlap. So just to show it in working order, this is my shape, and I'm going. And it's not just going to do one point, it's going to calculate every single point and every point's neighbor. And that happens in 0.003 milliseconds. Sorry, 0.003 seconds. So that's 3 milliseconds, which is way under 1 frame. And a frame is 60 frames a second. And here I have all my nodes. So node 0 says that he can see node 1. Oops, where'd it go? Let me just rerun it. I just reordered the list by accident. Yeah, so node 0, what can he see? He can see 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that node? Yep, that's the first node. So node 0 sees, node 0 is here. You can see 1, and then that's 2, 3, 4, 5. So he sees from here 1, 5,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. All of those. And distances are also important. So I've also added when it finds a neighbor, it knows the distance to that neighbor. And that is the basics of it running and finding the neighbors. The actual Dijkstra's algorithm uses that information. So those tutorials I'm going to link on both Dijkstra's and A-star. And then there are the tutorials on the actual math. I'll probably do something later on that. Or if I can find where I found the math, I'll just post a link to it. But for now, it was just trying to figure out the theory, and this has been the hardest part of the entire process for me so far, was trying to figure this part out. So that's my tutorial, and thank you for watching.